Hello everyone, my name is Sutton the Wolf, and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. It's been a hot minute, not too terribly long, but I've got time so I can record, which is great, as always. Last time we got if I remember correctly, we got a lot of Amane info, which is interesting, and we started talking about why she's clinging to us. Which I feel like is something that's going to be explored a lot later on. Obviously, I've seen the anime of this series, so I know the general plot line and I know what happens with each character, the important bits. But there is so much extra in this game that I've never seen before, and so it's still really fresh. I'd say 90% of what's happen, the details of what's happened in these episodes so far has been stuff I didn't know about. The anime skips over so much because they've only got so much time, So I can appreciate it. It's slow paced, it's really detailed, and the polish is good. That's all I can really ask for. I love it. Anyhow, here we go. A hobby is a window that gives you a fresh perspective on the world, or so my sister said. But when I was a kid, struggling through my daily life was about all I could handle. I disliked and avoided change, even when it might have brought me something new. So my sister's recommendation was to at least try reading books. That sister of mine was an unbelievably voracious bookworm herself, and she began to push the one she finished on me. I soon picked up a reading habit, although I didn't find any particular meaning in it at the time. My sister is dead now, as are my parents and my master, yet I'm still reading. The sister who taught me to read books, the parents who weren't angry at me when I was reading books, and the master who praised me for reading books, buying me as many as I wanted. I'm grateful to them now, since I've found some meaning in the act of reading. Kazami-kun. Do you have a moment? Yeah. I turn around in response to Yumiko's greeting, and find her carrying a sizable load of paperback and hardcover books. I brought some books that I finished reading. Interested? Sure. Appreciate it as always. It's fine. It's convenient for me to have you take them off my hands. As anyone with a long-term reading habit is well aware, books pile up before you know it. That said, it's hard to just throw them away, and selling them to used bookstore feels disrespectful to the author. The ideal is to find another avid reader to dump them on. Incidentally, before I came, Sakaki had apparently been pushing the books she finished onto the library. By now, she's established her own private shelf in there, full of pleasure reads. Most likely, she spotted me by coincidence as she was carrying her books there, and figured she could save herself the walk. Heavy, right? Here. I slide my hands under the books Sakaki is carrying. Hey! Watch it. Watch it. Don't take your hands off yet. The books are going to fall. Your hand seems to be touching mine. Of course it is. Don't worry, my hygienic standards are higher than you might expect. That's not what I... Jeez. You complain too much. Alright, I've got a hold on him. You can let go. You're pretty insensitive. Did you know that? That's so. Anyway, I'll gratefully read the books when I finish one. When I finish one, I'll return it to the Sakaki collection. So if you want to reread any of them, they'll be in the library. Fine. Well then, I'll be leaving. Yeah. Well, I'd take a quick look at the titles of the books I'm holding. Sohai Akai, The Decisive Pudding Battle. Kumabata Takeru, Yesterday's Black Cat. Hirao Atsuko, The Exit of the Desert. Seno Takumi, Professor Takeda's Dinner. Ethan Crow, An Insolent Woman. Shinonome Kazuma, You Blew It, Omori. Although she reads quite a variety of genres and authors, it seems that Sakaki fundamentally likes whodunits. Of the 6 books she passed me, 4 are mysteries. Come to think of it, I could easily see Sakaki sitting at a detective's desk, using her brains for a living. Flipping open one of the books, I speak toward the shadow of a nearby pillar. Makina, how long do you plan on hiding there? Huh. I'm not mad or anything. How about you come out? How'd you know it was me? Your aura is too crude. I can sense you even when you're hidden. That's news to me. I love her little nano-yosa kind of thing that she does at the end. It's fun. It's cute. I know people don't talk like that. I've met a lot of Japanese people, and not a single one talks like that at all. But it's funny. That's kind of one of the wonders of anime. I just said that for the hell of it. You were casting a shadow on the floor. I could tell it was you from the height and that shaggy head. So my stealth was the crude part? Pretty much. Why were you hiding in the first place? I wasn't really hiding, just keeping quiet till you and Yumi-chan finished talking. That's rather polite of her. You don't get along with Sakaki? I'm okay with her, you know, but I don't think Yumi-chan likes me much. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure Sakaki said something like, I think Irisu-san avoids me on purpose. You're in a state of mutual wariness. Well, I suppose that does happen sometimes. Sakaki, a guarded person who doesn't reveal her thoughts easily, and Makina, who feels most secure when she's burrowed her way into someone's heart, their personal comfort zones may be incompatible. Well, it's foolish to expect everyone to get along with everyone else in the entire world. There's no need to forcibly push these two together, but at the very least, maybe a mutual compromise is called for. I don't think Sakaki dislikes you, Makina, so try not to hate her yourself. Like I said, I'm okay with her. It's just, I don't know what to talk about with her. I get that. Huh. Makina talks really slowly. It's almost like she's a kid. I mean, kinda is, but... I mean, all of them are technically kids, like they're 15 or something. I think that's what the age was. Something like that. Like, they're from, like, 14 to 16, I think their ages range. I'm not sure. I see. I may be wrong about that. Feel free to correct me. That's just my... It might be 15 to 17. I can't remember. Anyways, let me ask you instead. How the heck did you get so friendly with that cranky Yumi-chan? Well, it's not like we're particularly close, but we have a common interest in books, so I guess that helped get things started. Of course, I get the idea Sakaki mostly views me as a little more than a convenient book disposal. After all, it's hard to say you're friendly with someone who scowls so bluntly just because your hands touch. Makina, do you have any hobbies? Hobbies? I guess walking, maybe? Solo? Yeah, mostly by myself. That's not good. Why not? Doesn't playing by yourself sound kinda lewd? It's all good, yeah? No. Also, no. Eh? At the company I work at, solitary hobbies are fundamentally discouraged. They place a lot of stress on keeping up some form of communication with others. When it comes to the interests of the employees, the basics are alcohol, women, and gambling, but it's a bit difficult to own up to that in front of the boss. Therefore, when asked, some of them just come up with a safe-sounding conventional hobby like shogi or go. When the superiors reacted favorably to those answers, the end result was that the hobbies column in the employee survey data recording an overwhelming number of shogi buffs. Although going with the flow is pretty much the defining Japanese characteristic, it's still something of a pathetic story. Well, having given them a nice, safe hobby like reading myself, I guess I can't really say too much. Eh? Nothing, just talking to myself. Incidentally, once you're the one giving the surveys out, in other words, an executive type, the hobby of choice would be gardening. Not something you could do when you're living out of a barracks. Are hobbies that important? Yeah, it's better to have some interest than not, even if they're really worthless. For example, the aforementioned employees and their wine, women and song. Even then, if they can help you find a single common interest with someone, your hobbies are worthwhile as social lubricant, even if they're worthless in every other respect. This is something I heard secondhand from a senior employee at my job, but sometimes you get cases like this. This is a story about a man who took a business trip to Gifu, or I guess it would be Gifu Prefecture. It was a group expedition with the purpose of field testing new equipment that had just been deployed throughout his company. At the time, the man in question was a new employee, not even out of his training period. Nonetheless, he found himself taking a long, bumpy ride into the mountains on a company bus, accompanied by the chief of his special department. The man didn't have the first clue why he'd been selected for the trip, let alone what he'd expected to do on it. To make matters worse, he was sitting next to a powerful superior he barely knew. In short, the man was about ready to vomit from sheer terror and anxiety. He fought desperately to keep calm, but his face was pale as a sheet. just roll with it, I'm doing the accent. The bus finally reached its destination at the foot of Mount Kinka in Gifu after many unpleasant hours. But the man's relief was temporary, as his boss informed him that they'd be attending a large banquet in a high-class inn that night. Corporate banquets are usually a crew kind of talent show. New employees were expected to perform some skill for the amusement of the gathered VIPs. The newbies from each department mounted the stage one after the other, quite a few croaked out popular karaoke ballads and stiff faces, but there were also some pretty competent juggling acts, even one stand-up comedy duo, which got some laughs doing imitations of superiors. The man watched the other acts with a fluttering heart. His turn was approaching fast, but he was basically a walking, breathing lump of artistic incompetence, and no social type with a single talent worth performing in front of others. Just as he was wondering whether he could escape by pretending a sudden illness, the man was practically kicked out onto the stage by the senior employees. For lack of a better thought, he started to sing, but the man didn't know any popular songs. Worse, he couldn't remember any of the standard folk songs or children's music that might have worked in a pinch. The man went instead with the theme song from a superhero TV show, Lightspeed General Damakarov, which he had loved as a kid. By this point, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of despair. This was, of course, the man's first time singing in public, and he didn't have much of a voice. Within moments, he was showered in jeers from the audience. "The hell are you singing? What's with you?" "Hey, asshole, you just making that up on the spot? That's enough, get off the stage, you suck." Although he wasn't the type to break down in tears, the man felt a deep urge to dig himself in a hole and crawl into it. Only sheer stubbornness carried him through to the last humiliating note. When it was over, the man quickly bowed from the stage and raced back to his seat. On that walk back from the stage, the man had a thought. I wish I'd learned a popular song or two. So, if he'd been singing karaoke as a hobby, he wouldn't have gotten embarrassed? Well, if you look at it that way, you're right. But the story isn't over yet. With the equipment test wrapped up, the man had returned to his new assignment at the branch office in Shizuoka. Someone called out to him as he was dealing with the transfer paperwork. "So you were the newbie who sang Damakarov at the banquet in Gifu?" The man's breath caught in his throat. He'd figured out by now that the main job of his superiors was to flaunt their authority by picking at the smallest mistakes and then rubbing his nose in them. And the manager speaking to him was infamous for his zealous leadership of his underlings. Frankly, the man was about ready to piss his pants. He swallowed and chewed his lip, better thoughts running through his head. What's he going to blame on me? How long will I have to grovel? But the manager's words took him by surprise. "I loved that show when I was a kid." The man blinked, dumbfounded by this unexpected development. "You from Hiroshima, kid?" According to the manager, Daimakarov reruns were played relentlessly every weekday afternoon on the local station. In other words, practically every child in Hiroshima grew up watching the show. But the man wasn't a Hiroshima native. In the area he lived in as a child, the Children's Encore Theatre program would broadcast old episodes of the show every summer. He just happened to see a few. Even so, the manager must have been really pleased to find a fellow Daimakarov fan, as he began to pull a few strings to the man's benefit. One night after work, the man returned to his bed in the company's dorm to find that a white plastic bag had been tucked underneath the sheets on his neatly made bed. He didn't remember putting it there himself, and when he asked around, nobody else had any idea where it had come from. The bag contained a huge jelly roll and a cup of instant ramen. As a new employee, the man had to eat dinner at a set time of 5 p.m. By 10 p.m, lights out time at the dorm, all the trainees to be starving. His supplemental meal was therefore a very considerate present. The man had an idea of who was responsible. Most likely his Daimakarov buddy at the top was the only one who could have pulled it off. On top of the early dinner time, learning the ropes as a trainee is particularly tiring. His Daimakarov buddy had probably figured he'd have a hard time getting his young body to feel asleep on an empty stomach. The man actually didn't have a particularly big appetite, and wasn't the type to be troubled by irregular meals. But then again, as a new employee, he didn't have much money he could spend freely on snacks and such. A little sugar was extremely welcome. If I get caught, they'll get punished too. So the man split the smuggled food with the other trainees in his room, and they all devoured their shares greedily. As the presents from his Daimakarov buddy, at the time they were known as the Daimakarov Supply Drop, continued, that talentless, quiet, and hobbyless triple threat contender for these asocial crowns suddenly found himself getting along with the group in the dome, all thanks to the Daimakarov connection. And 3 months later, when the man's training period came to an end, it was once again his Daimakarov buddy whose recommendation got him assigned to the cheaper branch office he'd hoped for. In other words, when it comes to hobbies and interests, anything's fine. Finding friends you can talk about some common interest with is a really valuable thing. Sometimes something that small can be a trigger for gaining a huge leg up in life. That's the moral of the story. Oh, I don't really get it, but Daimakarov kind of sounds like da macaroon. I'm hungry. Oh my god. I thought this was a pretty meaningful story. I thought so too. That was actually a really nice, really good, morally sound story. Like, I was quite surprised. And doing it in a strange Australian-esque accent was quite fun. I guess it didn't quite get across. Basically you're saying I should try stuff out and expand my interests, instead of playing dolls or wandering around by myself all the time? Well, more or less. When you're young, you should mess around with all sorts of things. Just try and find something that grabs you, even if it's stupid crap. What about you, Oni-chan? Anything got a hold on you right now? I read! After all that spacing out, that's a pretty sharp question. I glance down towards the pile of borrowed books I'm holding in my hands. I suppose right now I don't have anything other than reading that qualifies. I want a jelly roll! You aren't really listening to a word I say, are you? Well, not to say that you need to. But the word jelly roll in the story just got me... Jonesin something fierce? I don't get that one. Jonesin? If somebody knows what that means, just tell me, please. Please, by all means, leave a comment. Oh, and the macaroon man, too. Go get Amane to make something. An excellent suggestion! Oni-chan, come to Amane's room later, okay? Let's have snacks together. Yeah, if I'm in the mood. Okay, then. See ya! I see. I learned my own lesson from this conversation. If there's a mention of food in the middle of a story, Makino won't remember another word. I'll have to be more careful next time. That was positively delightful. I quite liked that. That was a very nice, morally sound episode. Regardless, that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. I shall always read them and I shall always take into account. And as always, I will see you guys next time for another episode of The Fruit of Grisaia.